Hello! Today I'd like to show how I made this custom envelope using the new gingham paper from Birch Press, along with the Shimmer Snowflake frame die set. And I created a trifold card using the layers on separate pieces of paper so that when it opens, it kind of creates a fun effect using that acetate. I used the Shimmer Snowflake frame set, and these are on plates and they cut beautifully to layer on top of each other. I also thought the gingham would make a darling background, so I wanted to show that. And I love the colors that these ginghams come in. They have a creamy white background, which makes making these envelopes possible. These aren't all the colors, but just some of my favorites. So I started off using the layers B and C, and I actually just used the back side of the gingham for the white and kind of a khaki for the top. And I just layered them and set them under some weight to dry. These snowflakes are going to be on the actual craft card, but I needed to create a background for the top layer of snowflakes, and I used acetate, about 5.5 inches by 4.5 inches, and I scored 2 score lines 1/8 of an inch apart. The reason I did 2 score lines 1/8 of an inch apart was to kind of create a little spine for the card. Because it's a trifold card and a layered card, it is thick. And so I just needed to kind of create something that was going to fold nicely. My first score line was at the 4.5 inch mark to match the size of the card, but then the 1/8 of an inch went beyond so that it would kind of create that base that you see right there. And because I'm going to be adhering a very thin snowflake onto that acetate, I wanted to use some double-sided adhesive on the back of some cardstock so that I didn't have to use glue and risk the glue showing through. So once I took it out of the die, I just really lightly went through and kind of pressed on those negative spaces to kind of get them to keep adhering to the double-sided adhesive so that when I did peel it off, I had a nice clean image and didn't have to deal with separating stickers. And that worked really well. This made it so easy to just attach it to that front acetate piece with no mess. And one could go through on the other side and kind of do a reverse of those snowflakes, but I didn't really think it needed to because it looked really clean on both sides. Next, I just cut an 8.5 by 5.5 inch cardstock, scored it in half, and then made the little bases. And I just went down 1/4 of an inch on each side for the gingham, and then another 1/4 of an inch and reversed the gingham for that white. I used some super strong double-sided adhesive tape to attach that acetate to the back of the card. So this is actually not going to be seen because we're going to put another piece of paper over covering this little edge that's going to show. But this creates our front of our card. And I'm just using my bone folder to adhere that nice and tightly. And then here I'm just adhering another 4.25 by 5.5 piece of cardstock to hide that lip that was showing. And I used tape here rather than glue so that there would be no warping. And then once that snowflake layer that I made in the beginning had a chance to dry a little bit, I went ahead and glued it onto the center panel to create the background for our front acetate. While that was drying, I took an 8 1/8 by 8 1/8 inch square of the gingham paper and ran it through my We Are Memory Keepers envelope punch board. And these make wonderful custom sized envelopes. And I made this a little bit thicker than what the template shows. I actually used 3 5/8 inch of a punch point rather than what they use as their guide, just to accommodate that thickness of the card. And then I usually just cut off the little point that you get after you make that envelope. Some people don't. I do. It looks, fine either way. But I do cut that off. Or one could just fold it under. I use that as a cutting guide. So to top off this card, I wanted to use a little snowflake frame. And to get it through the mail, I wanted to make sure that it was glued really, really well. So it won't have any problems going through, but if an edge was not glued down, it could definitely create some issues in the mail. So I just made sure to put a lot of glue on there, and then I set that under some weight to dry so it would get extra good adhesion. Also, I wanted to show a variation that one could do with the top layer of the snowflakes. So the bottom layers are the white and the khaki as normal, but the top layer I rotated the die cut so that they would actually be filling in those negative spaces. And I thought that that was really pretty too. So that was just another idea of how to use that snowflake die. So there is the trifold card, and it just fits perfectly in that little envelope, which is decorated, and I love decorated envelopes. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you have a great day. See you again soon.